r/askreddit. Pro-gun supporters, why do you support gun rights? Because I live where the predators eat your face, while you're alive. I was assaulted and nearly killed and the police showed 3 hours later. I got really into guns after that and moved out of the city. You don't realize how very little the police care. You are on your own, and if you cannot defend yourself, your family and your property, you're fucked. It's that simple. I'm a woman, I cannot take a man physically in a fight. It's the great equalizer. I travel by car across my state for work. I will not be a sitting duck if I get a flat tire. Average police response in a rural area where I live is 17 minutes. If someone broke into my house with the intention to hurt me and they have a gun and I don't, I'd be screwed. Because I am a small female who will never be as large or as strong as man who wants to hurt me or my daughter. It's the only chance I have, especially when response times can be 20 to 45 minutes in my area. My brother was shot twice during a home invasion/burglary. The fact that he was able to return fire is the only thing that saved his life. Edit. I'm not going to get into the weeds with anyone about this topic. A simple question was posed and I responded with my own experience. I'm not going to debate or attempt to persuade/dissuade anyone on their or my own beliefs about gun ownership. I live on a farm, I have to protect my animals. Because where I live when seconds count police are 45 minutes away. I am from former Soviet Union country, and with the current things going on, I support everyone that has a high caliber gun at home and is proficient at it. The country also has very low gun homicide, even though pretty much anyone can get a gun as long as they meet minimal requirements. Because the cops and where I live are pansies. I got assaulted by a dude. Filed restraining order. Dude violates restraining order. Cops and do nothing. He violates again. Nothing happens. Violates again, while I have my kid with me, nothing happens. I call the AG of the state, to see if I can get something happening. Eventually I did. Then, the weirdest thing happens. I'm a supporter of background checks etc. Sensible gun reforms etc. At least. I was. I'm filling out paperwork for a 9mm so I can protect myself should we get any ideas again, and I catch myself wondering what the hell I'm doing. This guy, he doesn't care about laws. He doesn't care about the police. He doesn't care about restraining orders. He sure as hell doesn't care about paperwork. So here I am jumping through hoops to protect myself from a guy who doesn't care about hoops. If he could get a gun to hurt me, he would. Regardless of legality. Gun laws are irrelevant when there are 450mm guns in the US. I started talking to people who own guns. I realize exactly how arrogant I was to assume my opinion on firearms was relevant when I didn't own guns, and I didn't know how the basics of violence works. Criminals care about power, not laws. People should be able to protect themselves no matter where they are. And many places, especially in the US and Canada, are far from emergency services. That extra time is the difference between living and dying for many. I'll never support banning guns. That being said, I see the wisdom in better vetting for gun buyers and certain restrictions for preventing mass shootings, etc. City life and rural life are very different, and often the great divider on subjects like this, and many others. I think it's time we stop blanket-type legislation and focus laws where we need them instead of everywhere. Because I feel everyone has a right to defend themselves, and I see a gun as the easiest to use option, something everyone can pick up and use. Sure, you can use a knife, but getting that close to someone who wants to do you harm is dangerous. I like cuddling with mine. Because hunting is better than factory meat farms. The police do not have the legal requirement to protect me. I am in charge of protecting me and my own. And the threat out there is fully armed. So why shouldn't I be to defend myself? It doesn't make sense to disarm civilians in the face of a violent police force. Average police response time in the USA is 27 minutes, average response time of 0.45 ACP is 950 feet per second. Some people like them, are responsible with them, and follow all the rules when purchasing and operating them. They shouldn't be prohibited from them. Armed minorities are harder to oppress. Citizens are armed, and subjects are not. Studies have shown that firearms are used defensively millions of times a year in the US. The right to defend oneself is a human right. No government can effectively occupy an armed population intent on resisting it. I live in Canada. I believe the right to own and protect yourself should be a basic human right. 1. Shooting is a legitimate and fulfilling sport/recreational activity. 2. Defense against animals. 3. Defense against people. 4. 911 is reactionary in nature. I have to call the police for them to come help me, and then wait for them to arrive. I have a right to not be defenseless during that time or if I'm unable to call for help. 5. I don't hunt, but it's another completely valid reason. 6. How can anyone feel comfortable in a world where only the government and criminals are armed? That's like the two least trustworthy segments of society. Not anti-government. Just pro-higher standards and oversight for government employees at every level. 7. The Second Amendment. What else do you suggest an innocent person could use to stop a violent offender? Because criminals don't obey gun laws. All lawful citizens should be allowed to protect themselves no matter what. I like guns. That's the whole answer. They are fun and relaxing to shoot. They are interesting. Some of them beautiful works taking hundreds of hours of a skilled craftsperson's time. I totally get that there is baggage with gun ownership, but I don't feel bad about it. I'm not a spree killer or a gangster or some white nationalist, I'm just a regular guy who likes guns. 2 words. Uvalde police. If the police aren't going to protect us, then I'd like the ability for people to protect themselves. Taking away guns is on the pathway to authoritarianism and fascism. Because responsible gun owners aren't the problem. Guns are not the problem. Bullets, accessories, and modifications are not the problem. Shitty, unenforceable policies that make it harder for me to buy a gun aren't doing a goddamn thing to prevent gun crime involving guns that have been stolen. It gives the 20-year-old girl who just got her first apartment an opportunity to defend herself against the 200-pound man trying to take advantage of her. Protection of my family and my home. I would rather have one and not need it than need it and not have it. Criminals fear armed victims, and criminal will not give up their guns. Second Amendment wasn't made for you to protect yourself from crackheads robbing your house, it was made for keeping the government to be scared of the people, not for the people to be scared of the government. Idea of keeping the government from becoming too controlling and impossible to overthrow. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. Never had any awards before, I feel like commenting on Reddit should become my career. I support broad rights for all people. Because armed queers don't get bashed. Because guns aren't going anywhere. They're here, and banning them will only ensure that criminals have them while law-abiding citizens don't. 1. I want to at least have a chance to protect myself and my family from people who break the law and also have firearms. 2. I enjoy target shooting at the range, and on rural land as a hobby. 3. Should I need to, I can hunt for food. 4. I believe that part of the deterrent to foreign invasion, and the rights of the people being taken is the 393 million guns in private hands and the over 1 B rounds of ammunition. An invading army would be facing a population of well-equipped and not submissive citizens. Was the victim of a home invasion by 4 guys in the middle of the night. Wasn't able to fight them off, and as a result, I had a gun to my head held by a person who had zero qualms about using a gun likely illegally obtained to rob me. Got beat to near death and all my stuff stolen. Fun times, /s. The gun ban prior, and best case scenario it would have been a knife to my throat. A few years later and I had a meathead road rager twice my size smash a window all over my then 2-year-old boy with a hammer and then come for me as I got out. That time I was able to protect my son and myself. 2 things to note up. If you outlaw guns then only the outlaws will have guns. God created man, but Smith & Wesson Samuel Colt made them equal. Edit, corrected by a learned Redditor. I'm from Israel. We literally give assault rifles and ammo to every kid that hits 18, often against their will, and force them to carry them around, and yet we have no mass murderers and no killing sprees, apart from, well, you know. The guns are clearly not the problem, and as an adult I wish I could have some sort of firearm to defend myself when my dumb ass country won't. Edit, I should also point out that when it comes to self-defense, guns have one pretty major advantage over knives or tasers or pepper spray: they are much more likely to scare away whoever I'm trying to defend myself from, and are actually going to prevent violence. Edit 2, look, How would you like it if every time you mentioned on Reddit that you were American, people would start harassing you by pointing out all the horrible things that the American government has ever done, which is a lot. Good, so drop it. The bullshit my government chooses to engage in is not related to this discussion, unless you're implying that nobody should have access to guns ever, including police and military. As an immigrant to the US, I came from a country that have a history of the government shooting at its own citizens and foreign invaders taking over. I'd like to take my chances if that were to happen. And if you think that can't happen, just take a look at Ukraine or the parts of China where they are building those camps. I don't own a gun, but I fully support people who do and the right to own one. Banning guns only punish the good guy, and the criminal will still own a gun, whether legal or not.